Hi, my name is Tulsa, and all I can say is when you're walking through our national parks, walk the yellow line on the road. Don't hike through the woods. There are things in there that you really don't want to meet. I know it doesn't seem like a logical thing to say. Why would you go to a national park and walk in the middle of the road? Why not see the sights and scenery in the woods? As a 16-year-old girl, it's very hard to explain. Yes, I ran away, but I can't say I ran away from home. I ran away from the foster care system. I ran away from abusive foster dads taking advantage of my body. I ran away from their biological kids assaulting me every night. I ran away from being murdered. You see, I wouldn't be walking this yellow line if everything had went right in my life, if everything had went perfectly fine, that if the organizations that was supposed to protect me had actually protected me. It all started when I was placed in this supposed to be really amazing foster home. Mind you, at the time, it was a husband and a wife and their two biological sons and four adopted little boys. Being 14, I thought, great, it's going to be an amazing family, and I'm really going to have a great place to stay. Because I had bounced from place to place to place for so long that I really wanted just to be permanent, just to go back to school and be finished with all of my schooling. Once I permanently got put there, everything went completely south. As long as I was a up to be adopted foster kid, they were perfectly fine. Every day I would have clean clothes and good meals and just be a part of the family. But once they put in the adoption paperwork, things started to go left. Things started to get out of control really quickly. Their biological son started making advances towards me. And when I explained it to the mom and the dad, the mom just waved it off and said it was no big deal. They were boys being boys. And the dad ignored me. So I had to live with their advances, and then it went from advances to coming into my room at night and doing things to me that I didn't want to happen. When I tried to explain this to my caseworkers and anybody else that would come, no one would believe me because this was such a good place to be, and I was self-sabotaging trying to get away. And after they saw that no one was going to believe me, it got worse. So much so that the dad joined in and the mom would frequently be away from the home just so that she can have no knowledge of what was going on. But one day, it got really bad. Mom had left for a week and dad was getting drunk and high and his friends was over. And he decided to show off the new toy that he had. And by toy, I meant me. He brought me into the living room and paraded me around in my underwear for his friends. Then he was like, if you all want, y'all can take turns. None of the rest of them wanted to do anything. In fact, most of them got up and left, but that didn't stop him. He proceeded to take me to the room and do what he did. I'm sorry, it's just really hard to talk about these things. So after he did that, he continued to act as if nothing had happened. 2 months went by and I hadn't got my period. When he realized, and his wife realized, that their jig was up and everything was finna get bad for them, they decided that they would say I ran away. But really and truly, they weren't intending on letting me leave at all. The mom woke me up early one morning and she gave me a glass of juice and she sat down and she talked to me. She waited until I finished drinking the juice and then she got up and basically said, I'm sorry for everything, and I'm sorry for what's gonna happen next. So I started to feel weird, and I tried to go back to the room. And at that point, the dad came out, and I could hear water in the bathtub being ran. In my mind, it wasn't making sense on what was about to happen. All I remember is going in and out of consciousness. One minute I was in the hallway, the next going towards the bathroom, then a hand on my neck, and then being plunged in the ice cold water. I fought and I struggled, and I remember just thinking to myself, just stop moving, just stop moving. I could hear every voice in my head saying, just stop moving. So I did, and when I stopped moving, he looked at me and he let go. I guess he thought that the medicine had kicked in and that I had drowned. I heard them both scrambling to leave the house. I heard them talking about getting plastic and getting things from a hardware store because now they have to get rid of the body. Everyone else was gone to school, which was odd because the sons, the oldest ones, never went to school. Once I heard the front door close, I slowly gained myself and climbed out of the tub. Knowing that the hardware store was at least 45 minutes away, I gathered my things, just my backpack, a few pairs of clothes, my water bottle, my shoes, my raincoat and jacket, shoved them all into the book bag, and I ran out. I didn't change my clothes. I was still soaking wet. I just threw my jacket on over it, and I took off into the woods behind our house. You see, we live right off a national park, so I figured I could hit the wilderness and disappear. No one had to know that I was still alive, and as long as they didn't find me, I can continue to live. I really didn't have a plan. All I knew is I had to get away, and get away is what I did. I hiked through the forest for an unknown period of time. It could have been hours or days. I really don't know. The most I could figure is that she drugged me and that they were going to kill me. Because, of course, why would anybody want to take responsibility for a child that no one actually ever wanted? So, I spent my time wandering around the woods, figuring out what I could and couldn't eat, finding water, and just genuinely trying to survive off the land. I would sleep in hollowed out trees and see all type of creatures and animals frolicking during the daytime. But it wasn't until I figured I was about 40 miles into the wilderness with no actual direction that I started to see strange things in the woods. One day, as I was starting out from my normal trek, trying to find a way out of the park and the nearest town that maybe I could get food and shelter and support in, I started to hear voices. And it was strange because I hadn't heard any voices thus far. And it seemed like the voice was following me. I stopped and I screamed out, "Hello, is anybody there?" And I waited to hear a sound back. I waited to hear someone even say anything back. But what responded back was my own voice. "Hello, is anybody there?" It sounded like me, but almost as if I had been recorded, like it was playing from a recorder. Of course, I got scared and I ran. And then I could hear something kind of running behind me. It made like a deer mule sound. And I could hear like branches cracking and branches snatching at something, and it was just horrifying. I was running so hard and so fast that I didn't realize that I was coming to a ravine that fell down into a deep canyon that pretty much leveled out as a river, and I hit a snag and tumbled down and fell straight into the water. The water rushed me down through a valley. I have no idea where it was. I have no idea how long I was in the water. But when I got out, I was really banged up. I was shredded by rocks and poked by branches and scraped by all type of things in the water. So I was scared. And at this point it was getting dark. And I was just hoping that that thing was unable to track me and that the water had carried me far enough that I was out of its reach. Lucky for me, when I came out of the water, I came upon a bank and there was a incline up to like a road. And right there by the road was a hut. It was so strange, it seemed out of place. I went to the hut and I knocked on the door a couple of times. No one answered. I was gonna leave, but then I heard the door unlock and a little old lady, Native American woman, opened the door and she looked at me and she said, "Oh, poor dear, you look a mess. Come in." I was hesitant because I was not used to people showing me kindness. She ushered me in and set me down. And she said, "Why are you so far out here on your own, child?" I explained to her what I had been through. It was as if she pulled it out of me without even saying a word. I explained to her that I'm possibly carrying a child that I don't want, and that some insane monster had just chased me and I almost died getting away. The old lady cared for my wounds and she listened with a sympathetic ear. She didn't look at me as if I was crazy when I told her about the monster and the things that I had heard. She said, "Stay out of the woods, child. These things out here prey on little girls. And they definitely will prey on a little girl that's carrying a baby." I explained to her that I had nowhere else to go, that I was probably going to die out here in the woods anyway, that it made no difference, that life had been hard for me and I really didn't want to push forward and carry on with it anymore. She gave me a vial and said, "If you drink this, it can make your baby go away." And without even thinking twice, I downed the vial. I stayed there with the woman for like a week and a half. Losing the baby was a violent, sickening process. And she cared for me. She took care of me as if she had been my mother my whole life. She prayed over me on a regular basis. She continued to care for my wounds and my cuts. I stayed with her until I was well. And she said she thought it would be best for me to continue on about my journey. Before I left, she gave me one warning. Walk the yellow line, child. Walk the yellow line. No matter what you hear in the woods or what you see, do not stray far from that yellow line. It can protect you. At the time, I really did not understand. All I knew is that she was babbling on about the yellow line, and I asked her which yellow line, and she said the one in the middle of the road. I looked at her and said, "You realize that would be dangerous. What if a car hits me? What if I get ran over? What if somebody's drunk driving and crashes and murders me?" She said, "If that was your fate, that's what it will be. But it is still better than falling victim to the things in the woods. Remember, don't stray from the yellow line. And if you do stray from the yellow line, don't go deep into the woods. Keep the road in your sight. And if anything you need, run to the road. The road is your protection." We parted ways. She gave me food and water, and I was saddened to have to go. But she was adamant about me leaving. She was adamant about tonight being the last night I was able to stay. As the sun set, we talked and ate dinner and enjoyed each other's company. The next morning, I went to set off. She stood at the door. She waved at me. I walked out onto the road, onto the yellow line, and I looked back. I hadn't gone further than 20 feet, and the cabin and the lady were gone. To say the least, that frightened me. But ever since then, I've done my best not to stray from the yellow line. Yes, it is a protective place to be, but it doesn't protect you from everything. The black monsters with the antlers and deer face, they can come out onto this line. The dogmen have no respect for this line. But normally if you make it to the road, they all will stay in the woods. They'll return as if reset back into their normal habits. They no longer see you. It's almost as if you go through a veil. So I stay on this yellow line while I'm in the parks. I walk through small towns, but people continue to stare at me. And at this point, I more prefer the monsters in the woods to human beings. So I will continue on walking this yellow line and keeping you guys updated on this journey. Thank you for listening to me. Have a great day. Thank you to all my pea thorns for popping over and listening to this story that I have put out for you guys today. Again, a great thanks to Deadhead Panda, Creative Panda System, the Blue Rose System, Alpha Tau Zeta Omega, and Q Art Visuals. We hope to see and hear from you guys in the comments. And don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell button so that you can be informed every time we create a video. Thank you. Bye.